Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So trigger warning, this is going to be about sexual assault and things of that nature. If that bothers you, please click off the video. I'm not trying to upset anyone. I've tried to film this like 7 times, literally, and I feel like I'm trying not to be politically correct. I'm trying not to offend anyone or upset anyone, and I just want to talk. So if I say anything that upsets you, I'm really sorry. I'm definitely not trying to. I'm going to try to be as nice as I can be. But it's a serious topic, and there's a reason why I feel like I want to talk about it, which I'll get into later. But people should be talking about this, and I'm not trying to talk about it for like views or because I feel like this is drama we should talk about, because it's not. But I want to talk about it because I had a reaction to reading this stuff on Twitter that I know a lot of other people had too, and I was smart enough to see through the manipulation and change my opinion. But a lot of people aren't changing their opinion, and I think it's really sad, and I think that it should be talked about, and it should be talked about why people feel that way. And if you're completely lost, I'm sorry. Let me just get into it, and then it'll all come together, I promise. So Curtis Lepore posted this. I hope I'm saying, I don't even care if I'm saying it right. His name's Curtis. He posted this long thing on Twitter, and a lot of people are like wondering why he's talking about it now when it happened so long ago. And I feel like he's talking about it now because all that stuff that happened recently with Gabby Hanna and Jessie, and just bringing that topic back up, and he probably just wanted to defend himself, and so that's why it's coming out now. That's just my opinion though. Who knows why he's talking about it now, but that's just what I think. But this is what he said. To all, this statement is by no means an attempt to discredit or discard anyone's feelings, but merely to tell my side. For too long, there has been one narrative to a very complicated and unfortunate situation. It is important that I clear the air for myself, my family, and friends, and my fans. Sexual assault, abuse, and/or harassment is something that unfortunately plagues our society and should never be tolerated. It is quite literally one of, if not the most degrading, disgusting, and violating actions one human being can do to another. Fortunately, we are living in a time where there are many positive conversations taking place about a human being's rights to choose what they do with their body. In 2013, I entered a very public relationship. We started dating, we cared for each other, we made Vine videos together, we were on the internet as a couple, and that was real life too. This was a real relationship that did involve consensual sex on many occasions. Our relationship continued over the next month. This week, before the incident, my former partner was staying with me at my apartment while visiting from Miami, Florida. During that week, the conversation of the two of us waking each other up with sex came up on 2 separate occasions. It was stated that this would be a nice way to wake each other up by both of us. A fellow creator and mutual friend of both of ours would later confirm to me that my former partner told him that these conversations took place. Later, this mutual friend would verify this with the district attorney who handled the case. The following week, we'd break up, yet still spoke daily while she was in Los Angeles. Several days after the breakup, we were in contact as we had been, and while she was filming a video for social media, she was injured herself and reached out to me shortly after. When I spoke with her, I immediately asked if she was okay and offered to take her to the hospital. She refused and stated she wanted to see me and asked for me to pick her up, so I did. Upon picking her up, she ran up to me enthusiastically and hugged me. Once in the car, she immediately proceeded to make physical sexual advancements, of which I reciprocated. This took place on the drive back to my apartment. Once in the apartment, we spoke briefly. I went into the bathroom for several minutes, and she laid down in the bed. Once I came out of the bathroom, I got into bed with her and made sexual advancements, and due to her reciprocated actions, I assumed she was lying there with her eyes closed waiting for me to join, but not asleep. Although there were physical reciprocated actions by both of us, there was never any verbal consent. I thought this action was okay due to the conversations that had taken place the previous week, the history of frequent consensual sex that had taken place as recently as days before this incident, and the physical sexual advancements from the moment I picked her up and throughout the car ride back to my apartment. Almost immediately after I began, she opened her eyes, she jumped up, and I did as well, without any hesitation. She ran to the bathroom and stated that I had raped her. I immediately felt confused and mortified. I cared for this person deeply and would never have done anything intentionally to harm her. Shortly after the incident, I took her back to her friend's house and was extremely apologetic. That night, I learned that regardless of any sexual history, relationship status, physical sexual advancements, or any previous conversation which gave consent, if explicit verbal consent is not provided prior to any sexual act by both parties, then no sexual activity should take place. 2 weeks after this incident, I received a phone call from her. I was unaware this call was being monitored and recorded by the police. I was told by her that she needed closure and needed to move on with her life, and she needed me to admit what I did was wrong. I was extremely conflicted at the time of this call and felt like I was being manipulated into admitting guilt. She kept saying that I knew what I did and to please just admit it so she could move on. I eventually did admit what I did was wrong. I wanted more than anything for there to be closure and for this to be done, as I never wanted to hurt anyone. 1 week after this call, I was arrested and released on bail. Shortly after my arrest, I had to decide between going to trial and defending myself or to take a plea deal. In order to make an informed decision, I reached out to a close mutual friend and discovered that my former partner was sharing intimate details of our relationship that would support my side of the story. Our mutual friends were all fellow creators and or people within the entertainment industry. These people did not want to be associated with this very sensitive situation publicly. So with no one willing to testify in a trial, the recorded phone call, and seeing the pain being caused to everyone involved, I felt the best option was to accept the deal. 1 year later, after completing weekly therapy appointments and 24 hours of community service, my charge was reduced from a felony to a misdemeanor assault, and the case was closed. I think that is worth noting that my former partner agreed to this plea deal of a lesser charge. My intention in this moment was to move on with my life, and hopefully everyone involved could do the same. I was legally not allowed to speak about this for 2 years after the case was closed. I began to get aggressively harassed and threatened online daily. I was referred to as a rapist and often told to kill myself as jail was too good for me. I know that I am a public figure and that comes with high expectations, but I am a human being, and the predominant emotion I felt in response to this was anger. Unfortunately, this did not lead to the best public responses by me, and for that I am sorry. I thought that if I just continued to do what I love and keep moving forward, things would get better, and when the time was right, I would tell my side. As the narrative of the situation became more and more one-sided, I retreated, and when I could have said something, I chose to stay quiet as I was afraid to speak in or do anything. Sexual assault, abuse, or harassment is awful and disgusting. It should not be tolerated, but neither should one narrative in a certain situation. I hope this statement can positively add to the conversation of everyone's right to choose what they do with their body. My passion is to create content. I aspire to inspire, and as long as I can create something that other people enjoy, I will continue to do that. Now, the reason why I wanted to make this video wasn't just to read that or to talk about the situation, but to talk about how I felt in the 5 minutes after I read that. And I feel like this is important to talk about because this narrative has kind of been embedded in my mind. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but where I've heard so many stories and situations about women who regret or change their mind or whatever the case may be, and they say that they were raped. And in the past, I have been one of those people who were like, well, you weren't raped. You should have said no. You shouldn't have put yourself in that situation. You kind of caused it for yourself. And I don't mean because they wore a certain outfit. I mean because they put themselves in a situation where sex was really known but changed their mind. And I used to think that there was no way that that would be rape. I used to think that a husband couldn't rape his wife because that's what I had always known my whole life. And I didn't realize that those ideas were wrong until later in life. So I haven't thought that way in a long time, but I did realize that after reading what he said for a few minutes, I was like, oh, she wasn't raped. She lied. And I feel like a huge bitch for thinking that, just for the 3-4 minutes that it took to realize how I was thinking. And if that makes you want to unsubscribe to me or you don't like me anymore, I get it, because that's just an awful way to think about stuff. But I really just was like, poor Curtis. And I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know what he looks like. I've never watched one of his videos. I don't know who he is at all. And I've only maybe watched 30 of Jessie's videos, and I really like her. I think she's great. But, you know, it's not like I'm blinded by the people in the situation. So I feel like I can look at it in a different way than someone who like really stands both of them or one of them, you know? And so I felt like I needed to talk about this because I know there are people who are gonna believe Curtis and who are gonna just think that Jessie's overreacting or she caused this for herself. And I used to be one of those people. I'm just saying right now that that is wrong. That is not how you think. And I feel like, or that's not how you should think. And I feel bad for all the people that I kind of just threw aside because that's how I thought. So anyway, I wanted to make this because I realized that I was very easily manipulated by what he was saying, and that if you really break it down, even if what he said was 100% true, if you really do break it down, what he did was still awful. And to think that this was the opportunity to wake her up the way that she had, and both of you said that you wanted, this is what she wants. She had a concussion. So when someone falls asleep with a concussion, they can literally die. So your thought was to do this fun thing that you guys had talked about in the past when you were in a relationship. Now, when she has a concussion. So even if you want to believe that his story is 100% true and factual, even if that's what we're going to believe right now, what he did was still awful. Awful. That's awful. If you don't want to call it rape, fine. But that's awful, because she probably wasn't going to die. Sure. But people do die with concussions all the time. And so she falls asleep and you knew that something was wrong with her. You admitted earlier in the message that you were worried about her and all that stuff, and you were offered to take her to the hospital, blah, blah, blah. So if you knew that and you still wanted to have sex with her, that's crazy. And so once I actually started thinking and came to reality, I realized that this guy's a freaking idiot. And I felt really bad for thinking what I did. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. But let's just go ahead and read what she wrote back with. And then I'm interested to see what you guys say. I hope people aren't pissed off at me. Okay, so this is what she had to say back. If you had just spoken your truth without lying about that night, there would be no response for me to make. I'm not here to tell you you can't speak. But what I'm not going to do is sit back and allow you to speak the lies you've convinced yourself of and belittle me again, just like you did when everything became public. Here's the truth. Oh, I can't breathe. I have never publicly talked about the specifics of what happened that night. Why you felt that was necessary to prove your innocence is bizarre, but since I remember it vividly and there are actual witnesses to back my side up, allow me to rip this band-aid off and say what actually happened. From a person who has never changed her story. From a person who's fucking shaking because you felt it was appropriate to put me in this position where I'd have to respond. Let me tell people what really happened. Curtis and I dated. I broke up with him about a month after, and he didn't take it well. He was rocking back and forth and telling me to please not go and that he loved me. I left my stuff at his house and had my manager come and get it because I was genuinely scared. I don't know why, but something made me feel like he would do something to himself or me. I told my mom and manager this that day. We did not speak daily after this, as he is stating. The only reason we became friends again is because he called my mom, who he barely knew, and would tell her how much he missed me, cry to her, just ridiculous shit. So to get him off my back, we became friends again. I knew it was way too soon, and I told him this, but we became friends again regardless. One day, I hit my head when I was vining and started feeling dizzy. I tweeted about it. A lot of you remember. Curtis and I were broken up at the time, and he saw the tweets and became concerned. I was alone in LA, so he texted me and offered to come and get me from my friend's house. I said, no, I'm okay, really. He insisted. I refused. He replied, I'm coming over, Jessie. You're not okay, and I know your friend's address, since he had picked up a friend from there before. He even called my mom on the way to get me to let her know he was going to check up on me. He picked me up. I was so loopy and dizzy from hitting my head that he became concerned and spoke with a friend that I had been staying with. She was out of town. He told her that I wasn't doing well. This friend later offered to testify in court for me, but it wasn't needed since they had a confession. He knew I wasn't myself. He knew I wasn't feeling well. On the way to the house, I asked him if he had bought the couch for his new house yet. He said no and asked why I was asking, and I said I wanted to sleep on it, so that he knew I was not interested in sleeping with him. He told me you wouldn't be sleeping anyway with a concussion, or you shouldn't be sleeping anyway with a concussion. We get to his house. I was so tired, so I made a beeline for his bed. He had a bunch of stuff on it, so I pushed it to the side and jumped on. I started closing my eyes, but when I did, I started feeling so dizzy. I told him I feel so sick, and he was comforting me. Those are the last words I said to him, an exact quote before I woke up to him having sex with me. Unprotected, unprovoked, full-on sex with a person who he was supposed to be looking out for. A person who was asleep and sick. A person that didn't have the chance to say no. I've never in my life told Curtis Lepore that I wanted him to wake me up during sex. The only thing we ever spoke about in regards to that subject was things I did with my ex that were all planned and consensual and did not involve actual sex. How he takes that one story about my ex and interpreted it as something I wanted him to do to me is truly sickening. I'm not surprised though. Him and his lawyer tried to justify what he did by showing the court that I've talked about sexual things in the past online, as if that's a free invitation to do as you wish with my body. Curtis, I did not pressure you on that recorded phone call with the police. I said I needed closure. You need to tell me what you did. Did you know I was asleep? You said yes. I asked, did you take my clothes off while I was asleep? You said yes. I asked, do you know that you raped me? And you said yes. What innocent man on a single 10-minute phone call can be pressured into saying they raped someone? Were you also pressured into confessing that you did what you did to Alex James? Was your mom pressured into telling Rolling Stones that what you did was lovingly wake me up? P.S. I didn't agree to a plea deal. I had no control since it was the state of California against you, not me against you. Surprised you don't know that. I don't know what you've had to tell yourself over the years to justify what you did, but don't you dare, after doing what you did, put false shit out about that night. Because that night is the reason I still can't have sex when I'm feeling tired. Oh. Why I distrusted men and cried after sex for years. So no, you don't get to just decide what happened. The truth has consequences, and the life I have endured after that night is proof of what the truth was. I'm disgusted at how you justify it all in your head. I'm disgusted that you don't see that night for what it was. I'm disgusted that I have to relive this publicly again. I'm so fucking disgusted, and I'm so fucking tired. Oh, that made me tear up. So that's all the messages that I've seen on Twitter. I also saw someone else, let me tell you guys who it was, Alex James, who retweeted and said, this man really forgot he told me that you were asleep. The whole thing about the video, and this isn't my life, so other stuff, I'm so empathetic. People always tell me I'm an empath, I don't know, but things like this just make me cry. I get very emotional. I felt like connected, and I wanted to talk about this just because of how I feel about the situation, and I wanted to just say to other people who might feel the way I would have felt a few years ago and how I did feel for a couple minutes today, that you can just see that whatever his side of the story is, maybe that's truly what he believes, especially if you lie to yourself for long enough. You really believe the lies you tell yourself. You will truly start to believe it if you tell yourself enough times. So maybe he does believe what he's saying, but no one is going to go publicly like Jessie is right now and say all those things if they are not true. You don't do that. I'm sorry, but I would never want to say those things. I definitely wouldn't make those things up. You can just, she's not going to lie about this for 6 years. She responded because she had to, because what he did say, most people didn't believe from the get-go. They just didn't believe him. But if you don't know everything, I never knew the whole story. It happened before I ever even watched YouTube. So I was never on anyone's side. So for someone who was never on someone's side to read what Curtis wrote can convince you if that's all you've read and you don't really look into it more. And so I just want to tell everybody that if someone ever comes to you and says that something like this happened to them, whether it's full-on sexual assault or, I mean, any type of sexual assault, I don't know how to say it without it, whether it's full-on sex or anything that makes them uncomfortable words, they have a right to be upset about it, to feel violated, and she has every right to say how she feels. And for this person, 6 years later, to come defending himself when he's the one who did something wrong blows my mind. I feel so bad for the people that might, like, I don't want her to read the message. I feel bad for her because of the people who might not think that she's being honest or telling the truth, or that she has any right to be upset. And don't let anyone ever tell you because your situation isn't as bad as someone else's that it's not bad, because she's still having to deal with this every single day since that happened, and that is awful. So anyway, I hope someone got something out of this video. I'm not doing this because I think this is fun to talk about, because it's not. But I think it's important to talk about, especially from someone like me who has had to really change the way I think about stuff like this. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that's all I have to say. This isn't something I'm going to keep reporting on or anything, but I did want to talk about these messages and just say what I have to say. So thanks, everyone.